If you're Singaporean and thinking of moving to France or anywhere else in Europe, this video will share about how I made the move from Singapore to France without a job and everything else I've learned and researched from costs, my timeline, and also any tips that would help you to save money, time, and stress. So whether you're planning your own move or you're just curious about how people manage to move across the world, this video is for you. So generally, the most basic ways of moving abroad is actually to get a student visa or get married or find a job or a working holiday visa. But I think Singapore, there's only working holiday visa to Australia and New Zealand. So if you're planning on moving to Europe, this would not apply to you. Personally, I think that student visas are kind of costly. I didn't have anything that I wanted to pursue in terms of masters or even for the French language. Basically, financially wise, it didn't really make the most sense for me. Getting a job that would have worked out the best because you can have your employer to or the job to sponsor your visa. But I kind of wanted to do it to make the move to France before I was 30. So I wanted to stick to my own timeline and I didn't want to wait for a job to fall before I made the move, and then maybe I would regret because maybe then life happened and I wouldn't have this urge to move anymore. And getting married, I think it's a big life decision which involves two person and it was not the time yet. It's not in the consideration. So I found out that maybe I could go on an extended tourist visa. So the visa that I was on, or the visa that I applied for, was actually called a long stay tourist visa, which means that you could be a tourist in the Schengen area for a maximum of 1 year. The upside is that you can move like immediately upon the approval of your visa, and the criteria are not super difficult. Like you just need a bunch of documents, which I will cover later. Downside of this visa is that you are not supposed to be job hunting, but it gives you an entry to the country to start your life there. So more on the visa that I was on, it's actually called the visa de long séjour. In French, basically it means a long stay visitor visa in English. And you can get this visa done at the French embassy or at VSF Global, which manages many European visas in Singapore, and it's at Tanjong Pagar. I got it approved quite fast. You have to start the process slightly early just to secure an appointment at whether at VFS or at the French embassy. So I think I started the process end of January. I started searching for appointments and I got my appointment end of March. So it was a minimum, you need at least like minimum 1 month based on my personal experience. And then during this time, you actually have to gather all the documents that are required. And then you present the documents on the day itself, and they will take some photos of you, take your passport, to stick the visa on once it's approved. And then when your visa is approved, you're done and you're ready to go. My only tip for this part is to really prepare everything, all the documents that they ask for, and even some extra. Otherwise, they would not accept your application. They will send you home to get your other documents, and then you have to book another appointment again, which is very troublesome. So I would suggest to prepare everything and more beforehand so that your visa application process is smooth. So the documents that they ask for, based on my personal experience, is an ID photograph, your passport, certificate of no criminal record that you can get from SPF, your payslip, your bank statements for the last 3 months, a letter stating that you will not exercise any professional activity in France, or you can also explain why you want to go to France, why you want to live in France for the extended amount of time. Accommodation proof. So either you have at least 3 months worth of like a rental on booking.com. Many people, from what I've heard, they book something that is cancelable just for proof, and then after that, you can cancel and rebook something cheaper. And if you're staying at someone's house, a friend or family that's hosting you, you have to get them to write a letter, sign with their ID or passport proof to say that they are hosting you for the fixed amount of time that you are staying at their place. Yeah, so that is very important if you are staying at someone's house. And the last thing would be health insurance. Timeline wise, I started to book my appointment at VFS around end January. After I came back from France, it was my recce trip to make sure that I was making the right decision. I got my appointment at VFS Global. I think end of March, 30 or 31st March. That was in 2022. And then at my appointment, everything went smoothly. I got my visa around 1 month later in April. Yeah, so it was pretty fast. Well, I mean, it was done in Singapore, so efficiency is at its best. They did ask me for something else through email, an additional document. So do remember to check your inbox because I missed the email, which is why my process took a bit longer. But other than that, it was pretty fast getting my visa done in Singapore. Another important topic that you probably want to know about are the costs. How much do all of these cost? How much I actually paid upfront before I even stepped into France, and also how much savings you might need in order to do this move without a job. Aside from flight tickets, aside from my one-way flight ticket to France, I actually forked out about 1.2k, everything for my visa, 1.2k SGD. So the visa application fee was about 200 bucks. The certificate of clearance, certificate of no criminal record that you have to get from SPF is $55. You also have to pay a visa tax just to get your visa, and that was like 150 bucks. And then my health insurance. So for my health insurance, it's actually paid monthly. But in total, because I stayed for 1 year, so in my cost, it was actually a yearly cost that I needed just for me to see how much I actually need for the entire year. And my one-way flight was 1.2k with KLM. This was what I paid for. I didn't pay anything for accommodation because I was staying with someone. Then how much savings do you need? It really depends. It really depends because it's up to your personal objective of moving to a country. Do you want to live there for more than a year? Are you planning to find a job there? Is it like just for fun, you just want to experience life abroad? And also, whether do you have a side hustle or not? To be objective, on the French embassy website, when you apply for visa, there's actually a sort of a rough gauge of how much you generally need to survive per day, based on whether you have a hotel book or an Airbnb booked, or with no accommodation booked. Based on their advice, if you don't have any accommodation booked, you would generally need 120 euros per day. The lowest end with an Airbnb booked, or I assume if you're staying with someone, it's only 30 euros a day. So that amounts up to 20k SGD minimum. I use this as my goal for my savings. So I would say low 5 figures would be comfortable, very comfortable. But if you don't have, I've seen online that there are many people coming on like 5 or 6k, arrive in France and then really like try to get a side hustle, find a job fast, convert their visa. So it really depends on how you foresee your life in France to be. But these are the numbers and I hope that helps. Some tips to any of you that are planning to move to France is that maybe, don't go there not knowing the language. So do pick up French, basic French. Paris is expensive. Rental there is super difficult and I personally would not recommend. I would probably go to other cities like in the south or maybe Lyon, Marseille, Montpellier. As a Singaporean, I would say stay in the cities because if you want the countryside life, public transport is not very accessible. So it's better to stay in the main cities of each region. French are more friendly when you speak French with them. If you are extending your visa in France, French administration is not as efficient as Singapore. So you will either have to do a lot of follow-ups or you will have to wait like months. For example, you can change it to a student visa. You would have to do that at least 6 to 4 months ahead of time. Another thing that I would say is that it's gonna be scary. It's gonna be uncomfortable. I guess that most of us live with our parents. So this is actually a big chance for you to do a lot of things on your own, figure out to live on your own, and basically be responsible for yourself. If you are still hesitating whether to go or not, I would say to wait. Sometimes you don't have to wait for the opportunity to come to you, like for example, having a job to sponsor your visa. Sometimes you just have to grab that opportunity yourself and make the change that you want to see. Yes. If you have the means, if you are comfortable, just do it. Like, you will not regret it, ever. Okay, so let me know in the comments below if there are any topics that you would like me to cover more about life in France or any other questions that you have that I might not have covered in this video about moving. Yeah, see you in the next video. Bye! Oh, and don't forget to subscribe as well. Bye! For thumbnail.